Hello, this is the very first video by That British Guy. I am That British Guy. Welcome. Now, a few of my loves, shall we say, include gaming, sports, although it doesn't really show looking at me physically, but I enjoy watching them at least. Storytelling and writing, that kind of thing. And something that manages to encompass all of these things, sometimes brilliantly, sometimes rather ridiculously, but that's just the way it goes sometimes, will be professional wrestling. And what I want to talk about today regarding that is more the gaming side of things. Now, since the late 90s, since a friend of mine managed to find in a second-hand game store a second-hand PlayStation with a copy of WWF SmackDown, since playing that sort of got me hooked on the brand especially, but just wrestling in general. And we didn't really know the product at the time. It was, I suppose, rather fortunately for us, it was right in the midst of the Monday Night Wars still. And by then WWF had really got the upper hand. WCW was falling by the wayside, and they were sort of starting to try and take the gaming side of things by the scruff of the neck as well, because obviously WCW with NWO World Tour were kind of on top at the time, but WWF were trying to do the same sort of thing with SmackDown, and yeah, that sort of got us into the brand and just professional wrestling in general at the time. And after playing that and buying the second one and playing that and the third one and the fourth, I kind of got all of them that were released on PlayStation, every single one right up to 2K17. And although 2K17 is in of itself a very good game, there are one or two things that maybe are missing that they should really have done by now, and a couple of things that used to be in old games that for whatever reason they have removed. And I've seen quite a lot of similar things. Oh, here's the top 10 of the things we need in the next one, and I don't really want to do the same old things. I just wanted to sort of chew the fat really, and just sort of go through one or two things that used to be part of the games that aren't anymore. Two things really specifically, one of which was last seen in this game, 2K14, and that is the story creation mode. And this kind of falls in line with my writing side of things. It was just fun to come up with feuds and storylines and title fights between different superstars that probably wouldn't get thrown together on the actual programming. A lot of people would upload their own stories and you could play them out, so it was kind of a way of getting story mode from the older games, but it was basically limitless. And because so many people, myself included, were uploading their own stories for other people to download and play and share with other people, and sort of comment and give feedback on, it was just a really good way of keeping that mode going infinitely. And then 2K15 came out and they just removed it for some reason. They just stopped bothering to put it in, and then 2K16 came out and it wasn't in that either, and then obviously 2K17, and it's still not around. And as good as universe mode is, it's not really a storytelling device. It's a bit too loose, it's too open, it's the kind of, well, if you don't bother playing on one of the brands or one of the shows for a little while and let it kind of do its own thing, you end up with ridiculous situations like, say, I don't know, Jinder Mahal as your champion. Or, well, like I had on my Universal champion, Bo Dallas. And he beat, for the title, Brock Lesnar. No one would tell that story, not even WWE Creative. So it was just fun to see how people would react to, well, going back, what would happen if Cody Rhodes won a title, or if a certain couple of superstars would form a tag team and take everyone out. Or what about reliving old feuds? It was just fun. And although certainly with the old feuds, with the showcase modes, they kind of brought that back in, there was only so much you could do with that. Once you'd played it through, it was done, and you kind of had to move on. That was a shame, and I think it needs to come back for 2K18 so that sad bastards like me can write their own storylines in, because it's fun. And other people find them fun, and they enjoy downloading other people's and going, hey, that was a really well told story. It makes sense. You get to play as some of the characters that you probably wouldn't bother with, and see things in a bit of a different light. It's a way of extending the WWE universe to the actual universe, letting them control what happens. Now, leaving that aside, the other element that was missing was last seen in a good light in this game. SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. And that's the GM mode. And with the brand split, again, this has to come back in some form. It has to. And yes, it was in the 2008 version, but because of ECW coming in and basically ruining everything, it thinned everything out. Yeah, you got a couple of extra superstars, but they were all mid-cards, and you ended up, when you were trying to draft rosters, you ended up with people like Triple H and Shawn Michaels and John Cena on the ECW brand, and it just made the SmackDown and Raw rosters really weak, because they would be replaced with people like the Sandman or Elijah Burke or, yeah, woo. So the one-on-one Raw versus SmackDown rivalry that was on 2007 was a hell of a lot better. And if you encompass things like the promo engine that they've got on 2K17 and the kind of looser way of telling stories, that you could also encompass parts of the story mode creation suite in there as well, combining them together would just make the rivalries a lot more fun, because the only major problem with the 2007 version is the only way to keep a feud going is for the same two people or the same two teams to face each other week after week after week until they got to the pay-per-view where the rivalry would be settled. And boy, doesn't that sound like WWE TV at the moment. Yes. But if we were in control of that from a GM perspective, you could play into it backstage assaults, promos to keep the feud going. You could have people on commentary to keep the feud going. You could have people running in on matches to keep the feuds going rather than just facing each other every single week. And there are enough animations from that they have used in previous story modes, and obviously with a bit of a tweak if they put them into the new game, then encompassing that together would just make the whole mode a lot bigger. Now, I understand they are probably going to bring back the showcase mode that was missing from the 2K17 game, purely because they couldn't get most of the decent matches that featured Brock Lesnar, because most of his opponents were no longer with the company, they weren't under contract, so the game couldn't use their likeness anymore. And that was a shame, because that is a decent mode. It tells a nice story. You get a bit of a flashback to what the highlights of their career was. The Stone Cold one was particularly good. The Triple H Shawn Michaels rivalry from the sort of early 2000s on 2K15 was very nice. Even the one on WWE 13 with the whole "this is the Monday Night Wars" thing, although it wasn't specifically centered around one particular person, it was still nice to relive that and be involved in that. So I believe they're going to be bringing that back for 2K18, probably with Kurt Angle, hopefully with Kurt Angle. So chances are, if they're having to go through all of that and reanimate any of the sort of video packages, so that some of it is actually sort of in-game stuff as well as video playback, then they're probably not going to be able to add in the GM mode and the storytelling mode. And I know people have been going on and on and on for, well, about 10 years now. We want GM mode back, we want GM mode back, and I understand that, but personally I would much rather have the story mode back, just because it lends to a much freer kind of game. You could even tell a story where there is some kind of GM rivalry between Kurt Angle and Daniel Bryan, and between Shane and Stephanie. So you can kind of create that yourself, whereas with the GM mode, it's not going to be as free, it's not going to be as editable, shall we say. So yeah, I would much prefer the story mode to come back. I'm interested to see what you guys think, whether you would prefer one mode over the other, or whether you would rather have both and maybe even scrap the showcase mode, or scrap other tweaks, or any other tweaks really that you feel the game needs. I think it plays pretty well, so I've seen a lot of things about trying to update the engine. I can't really see that happening, because it would probably be too much work and they would end up not being able to release a decent enough game in the 12-month window, and there's no way they're going to not release one because they know it will sell. So I think things like that are unlikely. It's more sort of probably game modes that they will be looking at, because the rest of it can be kind of a copy and paste from previous. But yeah, let me know what you think on that, if there is a particular game mode that you would prefer. And yeah, drop me a few comments regarding that, and I will see you next time. Please give a thumbs up to this video if you like it, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.